This is Scott Erlin in with head men's basketball coach Josh Schertz for our weekly report. Coach, let's look back to two games last week. Let's start last Wednesday in Jefferson City. You go over there and hand Carson-Newman a 100-89 victory. I think for me, I was there. You get up by 24 points at one point in the game, and it felt to me like it was an 11-point deficit, but it never really felt like that kind of game. It felt like it was much closer than it actually was, but you get 38 points from Luquan Choice, 10 three-pointers, 22 points from Jarrell Simmons. So how did you assess that performance from your team?
Well, first I got to thank Matt Green. We're going on location here today with our weekly report, so getting out of the office into the big AD's chair. So it's my only time sitting in the boss's seat. But no, I thought we played offensively against Carson-Newman really well. I thought that was a really good college basketball game. Luquan, for the first 28 minutes, that was as dominant a performance as I've ever seen in my 18 years of doing this in terms of shot making. I think the first 29 minutes he had all 38 of his points and 10 threes, and obviously he did a great job against the zone of moving and finding soft spots, and obviously his teammates did an outstanding job of finding him and giving him looks. But to go and get 38 and hit 10 threes and a 29 minute span is remarkable, and it wasn't they weren't horse shots. Carson-Newman zone, Chuck and Shane, those guys I think play the zone as well as anybody I've ever seen, and there was a degree of difficulty to those shots, and he was able to certainly stick them. But a lot of guys contributed. Jarrell obviously played very well. Jalen Steele gets 6 assists to 1 turnover, which was terrific. Dorian kind of does what he does, fills the stat sheet, and then you get a guy like Nixon Blanc who comes off the bench. We had Emmanuel Terry gets 2 fouls, and Curtis McMillian I think got 2 fouls in 2 seconds. And so literally with 15 minutes to go, 14 minutes to go in the first half, we're playing Nick, and he's a good player. He's been working his butt off, waiting for his opportunity, and here he gets in a huge game with 15 minutes to go in the first half, and before he fouled Sawyer with his face in that double team and got his nose busted, guy was 18 minutes, 8 points, 7 rebounds, blocked shots. Just was a tremendous difference in the game. So was really proud of our guys. I thought it was a terrific performance against an outstanding team in a tough environment. It was obviously our fans did an amazing job of traveling and making it as homey as possible, but certainly it was it's one you get a lot of satisfaction from, mainly because of how much respect you have for Carson-Newman, how good they are. So you always, I think those wins, when you're fortunate to get those, they mean a lot more because you know how good the opponent is, and we have a lot of respect for those guys, their staff, and their personnel.
Well, and then you came back home to Textron Arena on Saturday. We had talked last week that this was the toughest week of the season so far. You have Carson-Newman, then the 24th ranked Lenoir-Rhyne team comes in here, and really the first 15 minutes of that game went about as well as they could have for Lenoir-Rhyne. They get up by 18 points and then all of a sudden the game turns. You guys weather that storm from them and overcome the biggest deficit that Lincoln Memorial has overcome in 8 years, since 2008. Before you got here. So you end up coming back to win that game 86-75. How did you assess that team's performance in that game and what it showed you to be able to, to show that resolve and come back from that deficit?
Yeah, I think, you kind of hit the nail on the head, showed an incredible amount of mental toughness. We came out and, it was probably a little bit of a perfect storm. I thought our shots, we had shot the ball so well against Coker and against Carson-Newman, I think well over 50% from 3, and had made 33s in those 2 games, and that we came out and the way we chose shots was not very good. Our shot selection was poor, which is what I meant. We talked post game about shooting turnovers, just bad shots leading to long rebounds, leading to broken floor opportunities, and with Lenoir-Rhyne, I think they're as good as anybody in the country in transition. With Palmore at the point, Noyes running the floor, and 3 shooters spaced around those guys. So, we were really poor. Lenoir-Rhyne was outstanding. It wasn't just our poor play. It was Lenoir-Rhyne's outstanding play. And we found ourselves, down 39-21 with about 5.5 minutes to go in the first half. And, what we talked about was simply that we would see kind of how mentally tough we were. And we had dug ourselves that hole through a lot of errors, a lot of bad choices on both sides of the floor, lack execution, and we would have to dig ourselves out, and we'd have to dig ourselves out on the defensive end, which, to me all year has kind of been, I think an area that we can show tremendous improvement in, is on the defensive side of the ball. Our numbers aren't nearly where they've been historically, and that, we made obviously a number of changes. We shifted Dorian onto Palmore, which was huge. I thought he did an incredible job on Keenan Palmore. Luquan was terrific, probably as good a defense performance he's ever had against Will Perry. We switched Curtis Webb onto Reed Lucas to give some more length out there, and we went small for when the game turned. We played Dorian at the center along with 4 guards. So we went super small, tried to change some things up, and gave us some footing heading into the second half, and we did a good job second half, I thought, of executing. We played big some, played small some. Certainly Curtis McMillian had a great stretch there in the middle of the second half. He had, I think, 7 straight points and an assist to Luquan for 3 to kind of spur a 10-0 run. And a lot of things happened. I thought we defended at a really high level. The last minute of the game, we didn't, but outside of that, for about 24 minutes, that was the best defense we played all year. And when you look at it, with Lenoir-Rhyne, I think going in the game, they're leading the country in 3-pointers made per game, a little over 13 a game. And we held them to 4 made threes, which that's not really the thing. The biggest thing was we held them to 15 attempts, which meant our guys were urgent about getting out there, taking them off the 3-point line, not giving up threes. That's a big part of what we try to do defensively. And guys, I thought, better than they have all year, showed a great sense of urgency about taking away the 3-point line and flying out to shooters and trying to do those type of things. So we showed a lot of fortitude, showed a lot of character, showed a lot of toughness. I'm proud of those guys for that, and to come back against an outstanding team like Lenoir-Rhyne. We'll hopefully we'll have that in our back pocket, know that we can do that in the future. Hopefully not down 18 again, but but we know that we have our guys' will to win is there.
Well, and let's talk about this week. You host Brevard here tomorrow at 8 p.m., and then you're hitting the road to Wingate on Saturday. Kind of a strange week. You got a Brevard team coming in who's lost 10 of their last 11 games, played on Monday, and they ended up taking another tough loss. They've had several really close losses the last, over this tough stretch for them. But what is kind of the conversation about the Tornadoes coming in? They've typically played us pretty well here in past years. But what is the conversation with your guys when you've got, obviously, kind of a headline game coming up on Saturday at Wingate?
Well, I think conversations always, you gotta focus in on what's right in front of you. Otherwise, you're gonna miss your turn at bat, which is the one that the only game that matters right now to us is Brevard. We certainly, I think everybody understands, the task at hand on Saturday. But you look at Lee and you look at that team and you look at their record and you say, well, they're 3-16 and they're whatever 2-11 in the league. So they're struggling. But the reality is, the last 4 games, I think they're playing much better. They went into Queens, led that game at halftime, led that game in the second half, lose by 8 down there at Queens, lose a 1-point game to Tusculum in a game that they had a shot to win at the buzzer, didn't go in, beat Coker, and then they lose by 3 last night in a game that could have gone any which way. They could be on a 4-game winning streak. They're not. But I think with Lee's teams, and a lot of times coaches, I think we've discussed this, get labeled good coaches, bad coaches, whatever the case may be, based on the games they win or lose, and nobody really factors in circumstances into that equation. And you look at Lee and the job he does in difficult circumstances, it's as good as any in the country. He gives his team a great chance to win. They play a style that's very unique with the Princeton offense, the matchup zone. They do an outstanding job. They have 2 elite players and DeMarcus Threet and Miles Leathers. Alex Moe is very solid for them on the interior. They've always presented us problems. We went down there in December, and it was a tie game at half. I didn't even realize until watching it, it was 62-56 with 8 minutes to go in the game. It was a 6-point game, and we made some shots down the stretch and were able to pull away. But they always play us tough. I think they're we got a lot of respect for their team, what they do, their kids. They fight. You look at their bench, and says a lot about Lee and the people in his program that in the midst of some tough times that you watch their bench, they're up, they're cheering, they're playing their tails off, they're fighting, they're not getting blown out. Every game is they're fighting tooth and nail. So a lot of credit to them, to their kids, to their staff, because that reflects on who they are. And and so we expect it to be very difficult here tomorrow night. We expect their best. We'll expect to have to play our best and come out and execute and do some things and against a very unique team. Them and Newberry are probably the most, in completely opposite ways, the most unique preparations inside of our league.
Well, let's talk briefly about Wingate. Obviously, a really strange game here in December as well. Beat them by 46. They come in here and you had talked about at the time that it was one of those situations where they played about as poorly as they could have, and we played about as well as we could have. A perfect storm. But now Wingate won 9 straight sack games, 8 overall total, and they're right there in third place now, currently behind Queens. So obviously a challenging game ahead.
Yeah, I mean, it's in sports we've all been there. On the good sides and bad side of those nights. They laid an egg. They played as badly as they could, and we played as well as we could. And it was just one of those nights. I've been on the receiving ends of those, and it wasn't too long ago we were down, to Mount Olive in the NCAA tournament, 28-5 with 6 minutes to go. So, we've all been there, and it's much more fun to be on the good side of that. But the reality is Wingate's got a terrific team. They've always, under Brian, been good. They're always competing at the very top of the league. They're always getting better. They seem to play their best basketball in February and March, which is one of his great skills as a coach. They're always sound defensively. They execute offensively. They've completely revamped their style. They've beaten, I think, 3 nationally ranked teams at home. A couple inside the top 10. They've played extremely well on their home floor. They're confident. They've won, as you said, 9 straight games inside the league. They've won 8 straight overall. They've been in a lot of close games and found ways to win, which that shows a lot about them. They've not been just blowing people's doors off. They've had some games they've done that, but they've also found ways to win really tough games down the stretch and make the plays necessary. So, we would expect a typical Wingate LMU game. I think our guys are smart enough to know that what happened December 16th has absolutely no bearing on what's going to happen on February 6th. Each game's its own mosaic. You got to be ready to play, and doesn't, like I said, doesn't matter what happened 2 months ago, and we're just going to have to play exceptionally well to have a chance to be competitive, because I expect them to be, obviously they'll be ready to play. There's a lot at stake. It's a big game. We got to handle our business Wednesday, but then when you turn your attention there, it's one of those games that's going to be, you hope to play well enough during the season to have the chance to play in some high stakes games in February, March. Certainly that'll be a high-stake game here in February on the road at Wingate against an outstanding team and what should be a very tough environment for our guys.